That was a very spot-on prayer. Thank you very much. I am so glad to be here with you. I regularly pray for Shannon's life among you here at UH, and I've even tried to pick up a few culturally cougar things. So, I'm trying. I did think about running stuff off on red, but I thought, who can read things on red? So, the prayer that I have for tonight is that what we're going to look at together will bear fruit outside of this time. I'm trying to make an investment in your friendships, your employment situations, your future marriage, whatever. The thing we're going to consider together tonight is listening. My very last week when I worked at Mary Hardin Baylor, I did something that I'd had in my heart for a very long time. And I just put up a little table in the student center and put up a sign that said, "I will listen to you." And people came by. And I loved it. And I thought, why didn't I do this years ago? There's a lot of need for people to be listening. I'm going to propose that maybe we can learn a verse together. It's 11 words long. You look smart, so here's the 11 words. I'm going to feed them to you in phrases. Be quick to hear. Be quick to hear. Okay, we'll try it again. Be quick to hear. Slow to speak. And slow to anger. Be quick to hear. Slow to speak. And slow to anger. Let's try to say it all together. Be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. I think that's just some mighty good advice, and I would like to thank James for putting that in his letter, his first chapter, the 19th verse. There is so there's the advice there to put most of our energy into hearing. Be slow to speak and definitely slow to anger. A helpful verse for me is in Proverbs, and it's Proverbs 20:12, and it says, "Ears that hear, eyes that see, the Lord made both of these." And I believe that is true for you and me. He gave us these portals, and we've got two portals that take things in, and one portal that puts things out there. Good proportions. So I'm going to ask, we're going to, actually, sometimes people when they speak, they say, and what we're going to talk about tonight, and really, they're going to do all the talking, but that's not true tonight. What we're going to talk about is really, you're going to help. I think there are two people here named Jocelyn. Is that right? Would the Jocelyns come forward? Oh, yay. And I went looking for my markers at the church, and I could only find my Christmas markers. So is this good? So we're going to, I invite your thoughts. Right now, you're the panel of experts. And over here, are both of you right-handed? Yes. Yeah, I am too. So we'll all work with this. Okay, Jocelyn, would you come over here? This Jocelyn, great. And over here, Jocelyn, the list you're going to make in green, I want you to say some things that capture how do you feel when someone doesn't listen to you? They ignore you, they blow you off. How do you feel when someone doesn't listen? Let's see if we can get at least 5 words up there on the board. Annoyed? Oh, that's very honest. Annoyed, what else? Irritated. Well, these are two related feelings, okay? Hurt. Disappointed. Keep them coming. Who said disrespected? Oh, yeah. Disrespected someone else? Impatient? Wow. Yes.
She had a good one. It was invisible.
Yes. I was once at a friend's house, and she and her sister and the roommate, they were fixing supper. And this particular evening, I was invisible. Now, I'm not known for my culinary skills, but I still want to help. So they were in the kitchen, and I started going around and asking them, can I help? Is there something I can do to help? And no one talked to me. So then I started talking to major appliances like the refrigerator, the stove, the microwave. Is there anything I can do to help? Is there anything I can do to help? Is there anything I can do to help? No one saw me. And finally, one of the ladies turned to another and said, would you put the napkins and the forks on the table? I was like, no, please. Let me do that. But I was real live invisible. But that's a tame invisibility. There are other times that invisible. So did you say invisible? Did you get invisible? You got that. Okay, a couple of more. How you feel when someone doesn't listen to you. Insignificant. Yes. Inconspicuous. Insignificant. Oh, you can maybe put it down there because we're going to have some more over here. Good. Oh, I should have brought in a razor. Oh, very humble of you. Insignificant. The other one was inconspicuous. I'm so sorry. I-N-C-O-N-S-P-I. Oh, you carry on. S. There's an S. It's good to be at an institution of higher learning. Learning education, that's good. Okay, very good. Now, did worthless make this list? Just add it there. Does anybody feel worthless when somebody doesn't listen to you? I do. Okay, it gets better. Thank you, Jocelyn. What do you guess she's going to write? How do you feel when somebody listens to you? Somebody gives you their undivided attention. How do you feel? You can go down that side. Appreciated? Yeah, just start there and start listing. Appreciated. We've got one appreciated. Appreciated going once. Going to do what? Wanted. Oh, yes. Understood. Loved. Known. Ooh. Respected. Important. I not only feel heard, I feel seen. If you can put seen up there. Happy. I was just thinking relieved. Does anybody feel relieved when somebody listens to you? Is your word up here? Either how you feel when you're not being listened to or how you feel when you are? Jocelyn and Jocelyn. You can just put the Christmas markers there. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to state some of your feelings about things with your very bodies. So we're going to do some continuums. And so if y'all would stand up and put stuff under your chair so it won't get hurt in the stampede that I'm sure will follow. And going to give you a side of the room, and you don't have to move all the way to the side of the room, just more that way than the other. This is your opinion. Based on your opinion, no scientific, research to back it up. Over here, move that way if you think most people are good listeners. And over here, if you think very few people are good listeners. So just move wherever you want to go. And y'all will politely, most people are good listeners, very few people are good listeners, most people are good listeners, very few people are good listeners, and the building tilts. Oh my goodness. Anybody here want to say why you're standing on this side of the room? Yes.
I don't have very strong evidence, but from my experience, people have been very generous and listened well, so I didn't really have bad experiences.
I think the word generous is really key there because they're giving you their time and their attention. And really, at the end of the day, those are one of the two main things we have to give people. You've fallen in with good folks. Anybody over here want to make a brief case that very few people are good listeners? Oh, I see that hand in the back, and we'll pick you up too.
People try to fix your problem.
Yes. Did you get that? People try to fix your problems. What do you want them to do instead of fix your problems?
Just be there and like listen to us. And we don't need our problems to be fixed. We just need someone to talk to and like support us. Yeah.
There's another proverb that says, an answer lies deep in the heart of man, and a man of understanding will draw it out. It's like someone who's patient enough to drop that bucket in the well and pull it up and pour it out. And yes, sir, there's many people here with beards. Okay, what was your
Because oftentimes we're put into situations where we feel like we don't need to listen, and so therefore we have passive listening, such as being in lectures and being in there hours a day.
Yes.
Just hear someone talk, we just turn into passive listening instead of active listening.
So I think part of what you're saying is we develop a habit of passive listening. Oh, it's a bad habit. Oh, so okay, how many of y'all passive listened at some point in the last week? Okay, I probably did too. Very good, you did great on that. I'm going to give you another one. A lot of people are approachable, and over here, not many people are really available to others. So this is, your experience is a lot of people are approachable, and over here, a lot of people are not really available to others, and I'm not seeing much movement. No, yeah, so a lot of people are approachable, not many people are available to listen to others. And Hannah has moved toward the middle. We've got some stalwart people over here. Oh, look at you. Yeah? You're going to be in the middle too? You can be in the middle. That's great. And so I'm going to ask y'all, why are you in the middle? No, the question was busted. A lot of people are approachable. Not many people are available to others.
I think people can be approachable.
Oh, are y'all hanging on her every word? Because we're all talking about listening. So hang on her every word. Okay, go ahead.
I think some people can be approachable. I just like talking to everybody. So I feel like, or maybe they don't want to talk to me, so I don't know.
But you're going to at least test it by trying to see if they'll be approachable. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sing another verse. They're coming over to the approachable side. Is there more to that?
I think, what was this one again? They didn't hear it.
That most people aren't really available.
Yeah, sometimes people are not available. But I think it just depends on the person. I think that
Okay.
everybody's the same. Very busy.
Depends on the person. Very busy. Or at least we think we're very busy. Hannah Grace?
I think the same. Honestly, though, I think more about it. I'm like, man, I kind of feel like I'm more on this side. Because really, I think anyone's kind of approachable, even with like headphones in. They're still people,
Yeah.
you know? People are people.
People are people. Y'all write that down. Okay. Yes, sir.
I think people are approachable, but some people might be too shy to reach out to people.
Okay. That's a good point.
Too scared to test the waters because you think they're unapproachable.
So people are more approachable than they seem. Are we having some more converts over here? Okay. Coming to the approachable side. Y'all need to be approachable right now. This is very good. So anybody over here want to say anything else about people not being very approachable? You're bursting to speak.
I'm thinking about the questions together.
Yeah?
Like approachable, like we have Southern hospitality here. You know, I can walk up to somebody, I'll talk to them, they'll talk to me for 5 minutes, but that doesn't mean they'll actually care. You know? So I'm thinking of like they're allowing you to have a 2-minute exchange out of respect, but not out of like I genuinely care for this conversation.
I think that's very discerning.
So I think it's more like deeper of like, okay, approachable is different from like having an actual open heart to like care about others.
Yes. Thank you for that. If you've ever, sometimes when we move places, we find out that sometimes people are at least socially friendly, but they're not available to be friends. They'll say hello to you, but you won't go to lunch together. And so, are you ready for the next one? Okay, good. Okay. Transparency here. I'm good at talking. I'm good at listening. And remember, we've got this middle area here. So I'm good at talking. I'm good at listening. Thanks for playing. Okay, people in the middle. People in the middle. So, how do you know you're good at both? Are you good at neither? That could happen. Yes, ma'am.
I think for me is I always try to make sure that I'm listening to people and stuff, but when I'm comfortable around somebody, then I talk a lot.
Okay, so you get comfortable and then
Like if it's
you
like a
have
friend I'm close
words.
with, I'll probably talk the whole time.
Okay. How many of y'all are you similarly wired? That the closer you are to people, okay, very good. Is there anyone here in the middle who would really like to be in that group over there?
Which one's that one?
That is, I'm a good listener. Or you don't seem real enthused. It's okay. You would like to be? Okay. Let me ask, what would it take for you to be further that way?
I am the type of person who, like, when I am listening to someone,
Yes.
I want to help fix their problems.
Aha.
I want to help them.
Yes.
So I feel like in that aspect, I can like kind of dissociate and not really try to listen to them, but try and kind of help them. And then I'm not really listening as much. I'm just more so thinking.
But you have some great self-awareness, and that counts a lot. Yes.
I think very similar to that, but then also, I don't know, like when I start talking,
Yes.
it's hard for me to like stop talking.
Oh, okay.
So like getting to a place where I'm like I realize that I'm repeating myself in different ways. I'm like, oh no, I should have stopped sooner. That's my bad. So that, and then like, I don't know, I think of that scene from Inside Out where sadness is just sitting with Bing Bong. I know it's really funny, but like at the same time, you need to just sit with someone sometimes and let them be sad. So.
Agreed. Now, you people who are good at talking, what kind of things do you talk about? Yes, ma'am.
For me, my hyper focus.
You're hyper-focused.
I've got ADHD,
Uh-huh.
same is, which really kind of like gets me all messed up with whenever I'm studying because once in a while I will hyper focus on something and it just messes with my brain like something.
And you'll keep talking about that something?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Again, I'm really impressed by the self-awareness here. This is good. Any other people who you talk, what are the kind of things you talk about? Yes?
Usually just talk about small things to try to keep the conversation from going steady.
Okay.
But I just like kind of tell them like or ask them a question and just like kind of passively listen.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really like good at listening when asking those questions.
Did I mention self-awareness? That's really good. It's good to know. Because what's helpful about this, God has wired us to form habits. And the thing is, if we are not the listener that we think the people we love need us to be, there's really all sorts of hope. I mean, there was a time, honestly, before you really brushed your teeth or wore deodorant, but now you do that, right? There is the force of habit. You can form habits, and maybe you'll form some tonight. As you make your way back to your seats, I'm sure you know where they are, I am needing 2 people to help pass out paper. Oh, okay, got y'all. They're the papers, and y'all make your ways back to your seats, and I am giving you the bulk of what I'm sharing tonight because it's some of my favorite quotations, and I want you to have them. As they're doing that, someone tell us about who is someone who really makes you feel heard and how do they do that? Someone who really makes you feel heard and how they do that. Yes, ma'am.
My therapist.
Your therapist. Well, there's some vocational affirmation. That's great. Someone else, someone who really makes you feel heard and how they do that.
She's just non-judgmental.
Non-judgmental.
Very supportive.
Very supportive.
Like if I need to say like I just need you to listen, she'll just sit and listen. She'll be there for me.
So she makes a little bubble or something for you to be in and say what it is you need to say. Very good. Anyone else? I think she needs some more. Oh, yes.
I don't really have anybody in particular,
Uh-huh.
but people who ask good questions.
People who ask good questions. What is a good question? What is the characteristic of a good question?
Two things. One, they want to know more about what you're talking about,
They want to know more.
and it's like a question that they gathered from what you said.
Okay, so their questions reveal that they have been listening. Friend, there are two lovely ladies up in the booth up there. Would you? Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, someone who is a good listener in your life and what they do that displays their good listening. Yes?
Obi,
Obi. And what does Obi do?
he just takes time to listen and helps think through things with you.
Okay.
Like sitting there doing it, he'll help you process it.
Obi, there you are. Thank you. Thank you for being that kind of person. You second that? Obi, you've got 2 votes. Do we have a third? Okay, now it is confirmed. It is confirmed that Obi is a good listener. My approach in coming here to get to hang out with y'all tonight, and then also just because this is a sweet campus, this is a great ministry, and that's a dear friend. That is a very dear friend. That's a very, very, very dear friend. Is that I have confidence that everybody in here can be a good listener. But you're going to have to make some choices and form some habits. I want to read, I would call on other people to read these, but I want you to be able to read them. And so, since I'm used to these things, you're going to get some of my favorite things about listening. And this is a description of a good listener. His eyes were bright with intelligence and trained, get that word, trained, powers of observation. And they were beautiful with kindliness and with the well-bred habit of giving complete attention to other people and their affairs when he talked to them. He had practiced focusing, paying attention, letting other things go. A habit. This is something that we can train ourselves to do, to look at someone and to let other things go for that time. And this by Frederick William Faber. There is a grace of kind listening as well as a grace of kind speaking. Some men listen with an abstracted air, which shows that their thoughts are elsewhere. Or they seem to listen, but by wide answers and irrelevant questions show that they've been occupied with their own thoughts as being more interesting, at least in their own estimation, than what you have been saying. Some interrupt and will not hear you to the end. Some hear you to the end and then forthwith begin to talk to you about a similar experience which has befallen themselves, making your case only an illustration of their own. I would call that going autobiographical. They listen to you and they say, well, one time I. And I will say this about interrupting. More than once has the Lord asked me for Lent, because any of y'all practice giving up something during the Lenten season? I do. Well, several times the Lord has asked me to give up interrupting. And I can tell you, that's been a good discipline. Some, meaning to be kind, listen with such a determined, lively, violent attention that you are at once made uncomfortable, and the charm of conversation is at an end. Many persons whose manners will stand the test of speaking break down under the trial of listening. Would you read that sentence with me? Many persons whose manners will stand the test of speaking break down under the trial of listening. Yeah, it takes something to listen. In your friend group, would you prefer to have several friends who are great speakers? Or would you prefer to have several friends who are great listeners? I like this observation. The secret of being interesting is to be interested. If you've ever had to go to a group thing, let's say go to Renew on Thursday night, and you wonder, is anybody going to talk to me? Am I going to be okay? And all that. Something that I found to be really helpful is when I must go into a group of people, what if I concentrate not on what's happening to me, but I concentrate on somehow, with my eyes, my ears, my posture, trying to communicate to other people how important they are? What if I endeavor to give to others a sense of the delight that God has in them? And what that does is, as I go through an event, I can leave a little trail of people who've had somebody really hear them. And I've lost, not my self-awareness, but I've lost my self-consciousness because I'm about paying attention to others. So a way to be interesting is to be interested. Voltaire, some people I read better in quotes than in whole books, but I like this. The road to the heart is the ear. Do you know when someone's listening? I think I do. I think I do. Christ, our Jesus, was a master conversationalist. I just think that people had his undivided attention. And a lot of times the people to whom he gave his undivided attention weren't getting anybody else's undivided attention. Look at this list. He asked good questions. He made a safe space for lepers, Roman officers, blind men, rabbis, prostitutes, fishermen, politicians, mothers, zealots, invalids, and lawyers, who, while they were around Jesus, felt seen and heard. How did he do that? What do you think Jesus did from what you remember from his stories? He asked questions, like to ask a blind man outside of Jericho, what do you want me to do for you? Yeah. I think he paid attention, picked up on cues, and he held still. I think of the amazing, right in the book of John, you've got this amazing conversation with a religious leader, Nicodemus, and Jesus listened to the question that Nicodemus didn't even know how to ask. And then in the next chapter, he's talking to a woman at a well in Samaria. Who has that kind of bandwidth in their head and their heart to listen in those kind of settings? So here's some lists of characteristics of good listeners. They listen with their eyes. They dispense advice sparingly. They never break a confidence. I once heard a woman say, a dog that'll bring you a bone will carry a bone. Anybody ever heard that expression? Well, what it means is someone who'll tell you something kind of confidential about somebody else will take your stuff and do the same thing with it. So a dog that'll bring you a bone will carry a bone. When someone breaks a confidence and they're telling me something, I know what I can't do with them. I can't trust them. When I break a confidence, I have done a significant wrong, even if the person never hears about it. But something has happened to that relationship. Good listeners complete the loop. Let's say that we were all roommates, and that I was supposed to pick up milk. And so I come home and I don't have milk. And one of you says to me, you don't have milk. Well, what if I didn't say anything and I just walked to my room? How would our relationship be? I know this is minor. Wars don't start over milk, but not yet at least. But if someone says to me, you don't have any milk, I can say, I tried to go to the store and I did not find a parking place. And they can say, okay, then try to get some tomorrow. Can you see how that completes the loop? If someone says to you, how was your day? And you give them a 4-letter word answer, like okay, good, fine, are you giving them much of anything? No. So completing the loop, it's kind of like playing tennis, which I also don't do. Would any of you want to be playing a game of tennis with someone who never returns your serves? So after a while, you run out of balls in your bucket. So completing the loop means simply to take the conversation the next step. It doesn't mean you have to have a whole big talk, but it does mean you acknowledge that someone has entrusted you with something they would say. Complete the loop. Good listeners show gratitude when someone confides in them. It means you recognize a gift. I have a friend named Pam who would talk about those things that were tender in her heart, and she called them her fragiles. Isn't that a good word? And whenever Pam would share her fragiles with me, I knew I needed to acknowledge that and I needed to thank her because that was a high honor. And then back to this, ask good questions. Thank you. They ask what others enjoy or what invites answering. There are so many good occasions to ask good questions. Now, when you come back from Christmas in January, what is going to be the most common question? How was your break? How are your holidays? Could we do better? Okay, let's propose that some of those places where you have the common questions that don't really invite much, to say things like, hey, what was surprising about your break? Who did you get to see that you don't normally get to see? What was a gift you gave this Christmas that really meant a lot to you? What was the most relaxing thing you did this Christmas? At the end of holidays, when you come back to school, when you come on the other side of a weekend, you have the opportunity to do some creative question asking. Like, okay, it's Monday. Instead of how was your weekend, to say, what did you get done this weekend that you wanted to do? If you had an extra day in this weekend, what would you have done with it? Can you see? Those are normal places in our culture where you get to ask questions. I'm just saying, make the most of it. Be creative. And also remember this, sometimes people in our lives need a good question more than a good answer. One of my favorite question askers in my life is now declining rapidly. Just got word today that she has COVID, and she's 80s. But she would regularly ask me things like, so, Shawn, why do you love Jesus? So, Shawn, what do you want to see happen in the lives of people around you? Can you see how those questions have helped? I mean, they've shaped me because I had to think that through. So, ask good questions. And then if someone asks you a good question, they don't have a copyright on that. You just take that question and go ask it of somebody else. Good listeners encourage people to talk about themselves. So to listen attentively to another person is to pay the highest compliment. You show that you value what they're thinking. There's a story in a wonderful book called Friendship Factor about a woman who was in the UK back in the day, and in the same time period, she got to go to dinners with the most famous people in UK politics at that time. And someone asked her about that experience, and here's what she said. When I left the dining room after sitting next to Mr. Gladstone, I thought he was the cleverest man in England. But after sitting next to Mr. Disraeli, I thought I was the cleverest woman in England. So what do you think the difference was?
Gladstone had answers, Disraeli had questions.
Probably so. So Gladstone had answers and Disraeli had questions. Very good. Well, probably one was focusing on himself, and the other was focusing on who? Yeah. Yeah, you can be that person. I'm reading a book right now called Becoming Dallas Willard, and the Lord is really using it to speak to my heart. So here's this longish quotation, but I'm going to ask you to read the bold parts with me. So we're going to start off on this. After How to Die Daily, please read with me. To be able to love others well, you have to learn to listen and pay attention. That's a hard thing to do. So we're talking about something that takes work. And you have to train yourself to do that. And you have to engage in disciplines which will allow you to do that. You have to discipline your egoism. If you want to listen to others, you have to realize that you're not the most important person in the room. Because listening means that you cease to think about how you're doing and how they're thinking about you. And you stop adjusting your facade with words and thinking about how you're going to get to the next right remark in which you get a chance, and you really generously open yourself to the other person and receive them in love for what they are, and stop worrying about yourself, which can be a relief, friends. Now, once you understand that, you'll see why listening is so rare. You can read with me again. Because listening is one of the highest spiritual acts of love. The first act of love is attention. So when you pay attention to somebody, that is about the most loving thing you can do in normal life. So what keeps us from listening? Before we read the list, anybody have a thing that you think, that keeps me from listening? Yes? You're preoccupied, which it just happens. Other things that keep you from being a good listener, yes? Yes, yes. Thank you. He said, you think you already know what the other person's going to say. Well, let's listen to this list. We think we already know what they're saying. So, a good principle for tackling that is to seek first to understand. And almost how we're wired in terms of our soul. If I really understand you, then it's just going to be a natural thing that I'm going to have compassion for you. And that's probably true. Maybe that's one of the ways to look for a symptom of understanding people, is that we just end up having compassion for them. But the idea is that takes some effort. I once read in Celebration of Discipline and the Discipline of Study how to read a book, which you would think, you know how to read a book. And the point that the author was making was that you read first to understand, second to apply, and third to evaluate. And he pointed out that often we skip to evaluating without understanding. And so our evaluation doesn't have a good foundation. You following that? And we do that with people. We don't do the hard work to understand them before we evaluate them. So we have to slow it down and work on our understanding skills. Sometimes we're insecure or defensive. We may assume that other people are trying to change us. Sometimes we're avoiding something, and so in our listening, we are maybe stiff-arming or hiding from others. Another thing, sometimes we're just anxious. Sometimes the little squirrel in the cage inside of us is just so busy that we can't hear anything over that. The best podcast I've listened to recently, it was a sermon actually, was John Mark Comer on how to be a non-anxious presence. Isn't that a great title? Who here wants to be a non-anxious presence? You know those people that you get around them and you can almost feel your blood pressure coming down? And, they just don't have a bad case of freaking out. He's talking about Jesus the night that walking on the water happened, and I recommend you look that up. Sometimes we don't listen because we're overwhelmed, and we genuinely have no internal space to hear another person. And maybe at a time like that, it's good to say, right now, I think I'm just not capable of listening, and that's not about you. Let's make time to talk in the daytime tomorrow. Let me just point this out. This is free. There's something that happens to us in our interactions, maybe around like 11 o'clock at night, And it makes a real difference if there's something complicated to talk about. It makes a difference to start noticing this, whether you talk about it when it's dark outside and when it's light outside. So just try to have those complicated things in the daytime when you've had some sleep. Sometimes we don't listen well because we're angry or afraid. And we keep finding ways, brothers and sisters, to hurt each other. May the Lord help us not to do that. Sometimes we're hurried. And a good listener is okay with making themselves hold still and sometimes feeling uncomfortable because of what they're having to hear. We're distracted. A good practice in listening, like if you're going to talk to someone after this and there's people walking by and stuff, would be if you suddenly realize, I'm having a real conversation, just to step to the side. And if you're the listener, keep your back to the other people so that you can look at that person. Turn off your phone. Just do those things where you secure, it's the best way I can put it, you secure the perimeter and you have room to listen. Sometimes we're bored. It's a very kind thing to be courteously curious about other people and to really want to know more. We're full of ourselves. That's kind of hard to say. Sometimes I can be like, oh, I can't wait till it's my turn to talk again, So that really kind of gets in the way of listening. I've heard some of your ideas. As I've mentioned these, did you have any other things that really kind of bust up listening? Well, you're doing well listening now because you've been listening for a while. Okay, now I'm going to ask you about these responses, and if you think one of them shows good listening, just raise your hand. Someone says to you, I know just how you feel. And why not? Right. I had a time period in my life when I had tons and tons of deaths. And when people would say, I know just how you feel, I thought, no, I don't think you do, but it's okay. You can be my friend if you don't know just how I feel, if you just honor the fact that this is a big deal. Does that make sense? Okay, is this a good listening sentence? Please tell me more. I want to see your hands come up. That's good. Okay, I think so too, because a lot of times people don't hear somebody say, tell me more. So tell me more. If I say, the same thing happened to me, is that good listening? Y'all are doing great on this. How about this one? If you would just, no, no. And how about this one? I vote for That's good. And then maybe this one, it seems like you're saying, is that good listening? Okay, say more. You have to speak loud enough so that all your friends can hear you. Okay.
I think that sometimes when somebody's rambling, you might need to be like interject and be like, can you just like
Can you land it?
form it like yeah, basically. Well, not like land it. That sounds rude.
Well,
But like
I wasn't saying to say
like,
that,
not
but, you know.
fully understanding what you're saying. So
Right.
like to me, this is what I'm hearing. If I'm wrong, correct me.
Okay, that's fair.
I think it's good to say because you're trying to understand what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure you're getting it 100%.
Yes. And sometimes if you're saying this in a good spirit, you're giving them the editorial rights to what you're saying. If I said, it sounds like you're really upset about that, I find that most of the time when you're saying people's ideas back to them, they want you to use the words you just used. So if someone has just said, I am so worried about this test tomorrow, what if I said, oh, it sounds like you're anxious about that test? They said, no, I'm worried. That's fair. That's fair. They get to use their own words. But it's good to clarify those things. Now, some thoughts on becoming the kind of person who does these things. We can have all sorts of good intentions, but there's some kind of needs that need to be met inside of us that give us the freedom to be these kind of people. I spent the winter one summer, and you'll understand this in a second, in Australia. This is back when the state BSM had a partnership with Australia, and they sent myself and an Aggie down there to work for the summer to help start campus ministries in Australia, but it was winter. And one of the things I discovered down there were they had surf lifeguards. And when you're lifeguarding in the surf, it's not like you just throw out a life preserver. or just swim out because there's surf. So what the surf lifeguards would do is they would lock arms. And this really does a little better with a demo. Guys, could y'all come up here a second? Actually, yes, the three of y'all. If you could stand here. Okay, and you go over there. Okay, you need to, okay. Y'all are going to be the anchors for me. So kind of grab arms at elbows so we've got a real good grip here. And see, when we're being surf lifeguards, we've practiced this a lot. So instead of throwing a rope out, we're going to wade out into the water. Now, you need to be drowning. So would you flail a little bit? Okay, so he's flailing. So here we go. And I'm wading out, and they're like, oh, here, grab my arm.
I can't.
Oh, no, I'll grab yours. Okay, now, okay, we're bringing them in. So you see how this works? Okay, let's walk back to our places. Okay, but what if I thought, I am so concerned about this man that I think I'll just use both of my arms. How's that going to work?
Now you're both drowning.
Right, we're both drowning. So here's the point. If I don't get my settledness somewhere, and I would recommend a real heart-to-heart relationship with Jesus for getting this kind of settledness. If I don't have some kind of anchor somewhere, I'm not going to be able to do this kind of stuff because I won't have those needs met in my life. Y'all can be seated. Y'all have been on a plane where they say, at the very first they say, in the unlikely event of our cabins losing pressure, and they tell you to do what? Now, what do they say? Ingest it first. Well, when I first heard that kind of thing, I thought, there's no way, if I have a small child next to me, that I'm going to put my mask on first. But why did they tell us to put our mask on first? So they don't get sued. That's truly corporate. That's great. Anyone else? You need to be okay. Because the thing is, if they're really losing oxygen, if you try to do that first, you won't be around to take care of them. So in this whole realm of soul care, we've got to have our mask on first, or we can't do these other things about loving well. And that's a great place to develop a strong listening relationship with Jesus. Right now, one of the main verses in my life is this. The sovereign Lord has given me an instructed tongue to know the word that sustains the weary. He wakens me morning by morning, wakens my ear to listen like one being taught. Would you read that bolded part with me? Wakens my ear to listen like one being taught. And before I read that last line there, we're going to go back to this verse. I'm going to just repeat this thing again because what we're trying to do is to become quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. So, be quick to hear. Y'all say it. Be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. And we're going to say all those 11 words together. Be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. James 1:19. I have loved this since I was a teenager. Oh, the comfort, the inexpressible comfort of feeling safe with a person, having neither to weigh thoughts nor measure words, but pouring them all right out, just as they are, chaff and grain together, certain that a faithful hand will take and sift them, keep what is worth keeping, and then with the breath of kindness, blow the rest away. Lord, I pray that these things will land on good soil and bear fruit. There are 3 questions for discussion and then an action step for you to take home with you. So,